All right, Khan, Shalom, Shalom, Israel, Shalom to the 12 tribes of Yasha Allah, giving the course. All honor, glory, and praise unto the Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of the begotten Son of Mashiach, Yahweh, Shah, the world first to Jesus Christ. And he is he is the Savior of the nation of Israel. Right, this is Brother Yasha Allah. Shabbat Shalom to the 12 tribes that's observing it Friday, sundown, to Saturday, sundown. All right. Another day of praying, another day of congregating with like-minded individuals that are in this truth, and another day of serving the Most High in truth and sincerity, man, through the Spirit. All praise to the Most High, Shabbat Shalom to the 12. So as we go into this live stream, it'll be quick live stream through the Spirit, quick meal for Israel, some for y'all to think about, some for y'all to kind of go over as we enter into as leading up to the Passover. All right, we got a couple weeks left. I think about 3 weeks left, if I'm not mistaken. So with that in mind, we know also what's coming around as well as Easter. All right, so-called Easter, which is not in the Bible. All right. If somebody say, well, it's in your KJV, well, we'll deal with it. We'll bring it out. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I titled "Getting Ready for Passover, Not Easter" is because we as Israelites, we don't celebrate Easter. All right. Easter is not in our high holy days that we the list of high holy days that we keep. All right, because we don't keep that. All right, we don't keep that day. Okay, because that's not as I just said, it's not in the Bible. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna just share my screen and we'll get into it through the Spirit. All right. So first of all, we want to kick it off with Acts, right? Chapter 13. All right, Acts chapter 13 and verse number, let's see here. What I wanted. 27, right? It says, "For they that dwell at Jerusalem and their rulers, because they knew him not, nor yet the voices of the prophets, which are read every Sabbath day, they have fulfilled them in condemning him." So it's tradition for us to go into the prophets upon the Sabbath day. Now, in this lesson, not necessarily going to the prophets, but books of the prophets would definitely be pulled. All right. So as tradition goes, we're going into the prophets, all right? Because the Bible is consisted of the prophets of Israel. Now, let's go to real quick. Let's go to Acts chapter 12, and this is where people get the word, not necessarily where they get the word from, but Easter. That word Easter is actually in the Bible, in the KJV. Now, the newer translations, such as the NIV, the NOT, and I believe even the ESV, actually changes this and corrects it. But the KJV, being one of the oldest translations in the English, does not. All right, it says Easter. So let's go to Acts chapter 12 and verse number 2. It says, "And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread." So these are talking about the days of unleavened bread. In this context, it's talking about the days of the unleavened bread. What are the days of unleavened bread? The feast of unleavened bread, which is what? Let's go to Luke chapter 22, verse 1. Right? It says, "Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover." What is this? Right? The Passover. The Passover is the high holy day that's mentioned, all right, that essentially started in Exodus, the 12th chapter. All right. That's when the first Passover was essentially talked about. And the Passover dates back into what they like to say the Mosaic law, but during the time of Moses, when Moses was delivering Israel out of Egypt, essentially he led his people out of Egypt. But the thing is, the reason why it's called Passover is because we would have to put blood upon. We would have to eat of the lamb. We'd have to kill a lamb, and with that same blood, we had to put that upon the post of our door, so that when the destroyer comes down, and we know that destroyer to be Yahweh Shah the Spirit, when the destroyer will come down to destroy the firstborn of Egypt, all right, he would pass when he would see that blood upon our door, he would pass over it. It would not come in and kill us. So essentially, and again, that's all in Exodus chapter 12. Let's just get that because I was just roughly paraphrasing it, but we might as well just read a few verses in Exodus, the 12th chapter. Exodus chapter 12 and verse number 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So what's the first month of the year? The month of Bib. All right. The month of Bib. Verse 3. Speak ye, and what does the month of Abib mean? When you look up that word Abib, all right, um, it says, This day came ye out in the month of Abib, which is the first month of the year. All right, let's look at this word for Abib. It says fresh, young barley, ears, barley, month of ear forming, of greening of crop, of growing green, Abib, right? Hold on, select you. A green Abib, month of Exodus and Passover, March or April. Let's see here. Okay, come on, all praises. Yeah, so March or April. So they scholars already know that essentially the beginning of the Hebrew New Year is there during the same time of the month of the Passover, because the month of the Passover is the first month of the year. So it just makes sense that um the beginning of the Hebrew year will be during the time of the Passover, around that time, right? Because it will be the 15th day. All right. It will be the 15th day of the first month. So that's around the time of the new year, which will be either in March or April, depending on the year. This year is in April. For us, this year is in April. I think last year was in April as well. But um, there was one year when it was in March as well. So it just depends. All right. It just depends. So it says from an unused root, meaning to be tender, green, i.e., a young ear of grain. So when you look at Slovakia, when you look at springtime, because this is how you know it's in the spring. Because when you look at springtime, that's really when the grain starts to come out. All right, after the long winter. Um, let's go to yeah, we just pull it up in here. So springtime, right? Let's look at springtime. So they would say spring really starts around like March 19th to June 20th. Now that's it's relative. It's relative to where you really it's really relative to where you are. All right, because sometimes spring, you may have a long spring, you may have the spring starting in, kicking in a little early, but really it comes in during the time of March. All right, around the time of March, that's really when spring starts to kick in, right? So when you look at this, um, when you look at spring, spring is really associated with the flowers starting to bloom, the grass starting to turn green again, and stuff like that. So that's when you know it's springtime, right? So it's the same thing with or the reason why Abib, the first month of the year is called Abib, is because this is the time of spring when the life starts to spring forth again. Let's go to the book, or actually not the book, but let's go to the etymology of the word spring, and we'll show you. It will show you that, right? So this is spring as a verb, and it says to leap up, to leap, right? Hold on, right? Just look up spring as a. I want it as a noun, right? Not as a verb, right? But as a noun, it means what? Season following winter, first of the four seasons of the year. So it's the first of the four seasons of the year. So if it's the first of the four seasons, wouldn't that mean that the new year is in the spring? Because it's always been associated, springtime has always been associated with the beginning of the year. But Esau, you listen to Esau, Esau will tell you, no, it's not in the spring, it's actually in the dead of winter, right? December 31st / January 1st, that's your new year. But the Most High says that it's really in the springtime. So it says first of the four seasons of the year, the season in which plants begin to rise. And that makes sense, right? Because Even when you look at the verb definition of the word spring, it means to burst forth, to fly up, to spread, to grow, to leap up, right? That's when the bees and the all the animals that were in hibernation in the long winter start to come back up, starts to spring up, right? So that makes sense. It would make sense for the life of the earth to come out during this time, all right, when it's green again, right? And we know that, for example, March, April, it's associated with a lot of rain, right? That's when it starts to rain as well. And you need rain in order for your crops to be green. You need rain, you need water in order for the grass to be green, right? For plants to survive, there needs to be rain, there needs to be water. So I'm gonna keep going on this definition. It says, uh, as a noun, which is from a special sense of an otherwise now archaic spring, act, act or time of springing or appearing, the first appearance, the beginning, birth, rise, or origin of anything, right? The earliest form seems to have been springing time. The notion is of the spring of the year, which plants begin to rise and trees to bud. So this in antiquity, we see in antiquity, even in English, they understood that during the time, around the time of the Passover, would be the springtime in which life begins to spring forth again, right? So they even understood that in antiquity, right? They even understood that in antiquity. All right. So let's go back to that. So again, Abib means fresh, young barley, ears, barley. All right. It says green, i.e., a young ear of grain, hence the name of the month Abib or Nisan. Abib, ear, green, ears of corn, not maize. So essentially, when you look at it, all vegetation, has a beginning and the end, obviously. And when you look at the process, let's look up like the process of uh, corn growing, right? So it always has the stage in which it fully blossoms, right? In which it fully springs forth. So you look at corn, right? This is how it starts off. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing, it's going, and then you finally have that stage in which it's budding forth, right? So it's the same thing with the seasons, right? It's the same thing with the seasons. Bud forths, it has a build up to it and it buds forths, and then it kind of weighs down, right? It weighs down, and then it comes back up again. So it's the same thing with the seasons, right? It has a bud forth. All right. So yeah. So you look at corn growth, and even with I mean, this is really the same pattern as really all vegetation if you really think about it. But yeah, let's keep going on that. See what this says. Um, yeah, so this even says beginning at the moon of April of March, according to the rabbins, the first month of the old year, as instituted on coming out of Egypt. All right, let's see here. Okay, so like, yeah, I want to save that for later. Um, let's go over here. So this is Exodus 12. So let's go back to Exodus 12. It's Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, it's like they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. Right? And again, it talks about taking the lamb. right? A male of the first year. And this what they would have to do with it. Verse 7. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door post of the house, wherein they shall eat it. So they have this strike it. Let's get a picture actually. Let's get a picture. Passover, um, blood on door. All right. Let's look at that. So that's what that's talking about, right? On the two side posts and on the upper post, you'd have to put blood on it. And so what that is symbolic of essentially the blood of Yahushua, right? That's essentially what it's symbolic of if you have ears to hear, right? And even you have this picture right here. Somebody made this picture. I am the door, John 10 and verse 9, right? Which makes sense. When you look it up, when you look at it from the bigger picture, Yahweh is the door. He is the door, and he goes into that parable of John chapter 10, verse 9, right? If you have to enter into the fold, you would have to get through Yahweh, right? And it is the blood that covers us, right, from being destroyed. So, on a physical level, we had to do this in the ancient world to as really, firstly, so that when the destroyer would look at our door, he would pass over it and he wouldn't come in to kill us. And it's about to say that right here. Um, so it says, verse 7, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door post of the house, wherein they shall eat it. Now I'm gonna skip down, right? I'm gonna skip down. Verse number 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. So the Most High say he's going to smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. Why? Because they were killing his firstborn. And who's the firstborn in the Most High? Israel. What's that precept? Right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, the classic. It says, and thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. You see that? And the Most High is cold, man. He said, I'm going to kill your firstborn. All right? I'm going to get this precept as well on how Israel is the Most High's son. I'm going to get it out to just the Bible. This is Hosea 11, verse 1. When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. As they called them, so they went out from them. They sacrificed unto Baalim and burnt incense to graven images. So it says, again, verse 1, when Israel was a child, then I loved him, right? And called my son out of Egypt. So he called his son out of Egypt. And who was his son? Israel. As we see right here, Exodus 4 and 22, right? Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Let's go to second Esdras, right? Because even Esdras kind of mentions that as well, right? So lucky. Even Esdras kind of mentions that as well. This is second Esdras chapter 6, right? And verse number 57. It says, and now, O Lord, behold these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. But we thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn. You see that? So his people were called the firstborn of the Most High. That's what Ezra is saying. Thy only begotten and thy fervent lover are given into their hands. See that? So essentially, we're the son of the Most High, the firstborn of the Most High. So when you go back to this, that's why the Most High said that he's going to smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, because Egypt was smiting his firstborn. So the Most High is kind of using that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth spirit, right? And people say we're all for wanting the same thing that the nations did to our children, you know, and to our people, but the Most High is literally doing that right here. He's saying because you're smiting my firstborn, I'm gonna smite all your firstborn. And the Most High is justified, and the Most High is righteous for doing that. Right? All his works are righteous. All right. Like it says in the book of Sirach, chapter 39. Right, I'm just pull that real quick. This is Sirach chapter 39 and verse number 15. Magnify his name and show forth his praise with the songs of your lips and with harps. And in praising him you shall say after this manner, all the works of the Lord are exceeding good, and whatsoever he commandeth shall be accomplished in due season. See that? So all the works of the Most High are good. But it says what? Both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I'll execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token. So now he's talking about us. The blood is going to be for us for a token, meaning a sign upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. That's why it's called Passover. And this plague shall be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. You see that? So the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you. So that's essentially on a physical level why we had to put the blood upon the post of the door. So that when the destroyer comes in, you will pass over us. Right? Let's see here if it says that again. I do think that it says it again. Right? Verse number 23. For the Lord will pass through this to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. You see that? So that's why we had to do that. And after the fact, as we started to keep the Passover in our own land when we were established as a nation, we still did it because it's an ordinance. It's a memorial. It's a remembering of what the Lord did for us. And again, it's a foreshadowing of Yahweh Shah, right? All of these things is a foreshadowing of Yahweh Shah to come, right? It's a foreshadowing of better things to come, right? It's a foreshadowing, right, leading up to Yahweh Shah, right? So, but again, this video is not really driven towards breaking down the spiritual things of Passover, but that's what it spiritually is going into. Okay, so going back to that, right? Going back to that, that's why it's called Passover. All right. So this is the feast of Passover right here. All right, the feast of unleavened bread. Now you see how it doesn't say anything about laying eggs. It doesn't say anything about bunnies laying eggs at that, and it doesn't say anything about you gotta hide the egg and try to find the egg, right? Or it doesn't say anything about, let's see here, what else do people do on the Easter? You know, eating ham. It doesn't say anything about eating ham, right? Or that ham sandwich. So let's go to Acts chapter 12, verse number 2. And he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to the four quart- quaternions, Salakia, soldiers, to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. It says, intending after Easter. Intending after Easter, right? What does the word Easter mean? And here's the word for Easter right here. It's Pashka. Pashka, right? Pashka. Let's get it. I'm gonna play the audio because it doesn't let me play it on the Chrome for some reason. So I'm gonna just pull it up on a phone. And, but when you listen to the audio, it sounds just like Passover, right? But just more so in the sense of a Greek sense, right? And we're going to prove undoubtedly that this word doesn't say Easter; it says Passover, right? But really, just in the Greek. Now, the reason why they did that, the reason why they changed it up is because these are Catholics, right? These are Catholics um, that are translating this. So they have the Catholic dogma, right? Philosophy in their mind. Here we go.
Strong's G 3957. Pascha. Pascha.
Right. So that's how you say it. Sounds just like, Pashak, right? Which is going into the Passover, right? Even when you go into the Hebrew for it, this is how you say it.
Strong's H 6453. Pesach. Pesach.
Right. And that would be the as this says Aramaic, but way of saying that. So it's the same thing as Passover, right? Um, right here, as it says of Aramaic origin. But when you go into this, it says the Paschal sacrifice, which is accustomed to be offered for the people's deliverance of old from Egypt. The Paschal lamb, i.e., the lamb the Israelites were accustomed to slay and eat on the 14th day of the month Nisan, the first month of their year in memory of the day on which their fathers, preparing to depart from Egypt, were bidden by God to slay and eat a lamb and to sprinkle their doorposts with its blood, that the destroying angel, seeing the blood, might pass over their dwellings. Christ crucified is linked to the slain paschal lamb. So it's saying that, you know, the second definition of this word or the biblical usage could mean the paschal lamb, meaning relating to the Passover, right? Or the Paschal Supper, which would be the Last Supper. It's like the Last Supper. The Last Supper isn't just some random dinner, right? That was a Passover dinner that Yahushua kept with his disciples. And the fourth definition, the Paschal Feast, the Feast of the Passover, extending from the 14th to the 20th day of the month Nisan. You see that? So it says the Feast of Passover. All right. That's the definition we're looking for. The Feast of Passover. All right. And it says the Passover, the meal, the day, the festival, or the special sacrifices connected with it. Easter, but it doesn't say Easter there, right? Easter, when you go into that definition, um, or I should say the etymology of that word Easter, it's a totally different word, right? It's a totally different word. Let's see here. Let's go into etymology Easter for Easter. All right. All right. Easter. It said also possibly the name of a goddess whose feast was celebrated in Easter Monat, right? If I'm saying that right. Um, see here. See, he's not even giving us, right? And they're just relating Passover, Easter because historically Easter has been combined as to say, yeah, that's going into Passover, right? The Lord's Passover, which is not at all, right? This word for Easter goes back to, let's look up Easter pagan, all right? It says Easter is linked to the pagan springtime goddess Elstre, according to Han, celebrated during the spring equinox. Elstre was first documented in the 8th century and is associated with some Easter traditions that have lasted to this day, right? So that word, um, it said this is saying Easter, if I'm saying that right, was a goddess celebrated with a festival during the spring equinox. This is even saying Easter was originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex. You see that? Ishtar. So that's where you get Easter from. You get it from Ishtar, right? It says she is the goddess of love and sexuality and thus fertility. She is responsible for all life, but she is never a mother goddess. A mother goddess, so like as a goddess of war, she is often shown winged and bearing arms. Her third aspect is celestial. She is the planet Venus, the morning and evening star. So that's madness. We're not dealing with Ishtar. That's not a deity that we worship or recognize. All right. But that's where you get Easter from. You don't get Easter, that word Easter from Pashak. How do you get the word Easter from Pashak when they mean two different things? Right? Totally two different things. So you get everybody knows that it has pagan origins. But people say, well, no, well, we doing it, we doing it's really doing it for Christ. Well, if you're doing it for Christ, then why aren't y'all keeping the Passover? That's a big question. Why aren't y'all keeping the Passover then? Right? Why y'all calling it Easter? If you know Easter is associated with paganism, then why call it Easter? Why not just say, nah, that's pagan, throw that away. We're not calling it Easter. We're calling it Passover. And why don't you actually keep the ordinances as it is written? Right? You got to burn the bones, right? Or the leftovers, or salaki, even before then, right? You got to kill the lamb at evening. You understand? The lamb, the bitter herbs, the unleavened bread, the wine. You got to do all that, do that in remembrance of Yahweh, right? And then also got to have your loins girded about, your staff in your hand for the men, right? Make sure that you eat it in haste, making sure that you're not cooking the lamb in barbecue sauce and uh, uh you know A1 sauce, etc. Ketchup, whatever. No sauces and stuff like that. Making sure that your spirit is right during the Passover. So why are they not doing these things? They just say, yeah, yes, Easter. Go ahead and because where'd the bunny come from? Bunnies do not lay eggs. Rabbits don't lay eggs. Now you have bunnies laying eggs. You got to kind of hide the egg, and the kids go ahead and find the egg. And then you kind of open the egg, say, yeah, I got a candy. So these things, obviously, these customs, they're not in the Bible, right? Just being honest. It's not about how we feel or, like, well, I feel like that's wrong because, Christ, he kept Easter. Where's the account of the apostles keeping Easter as an average American would keep it? We're talking about you Americans, right? We're talking about you and even Christians worldwide. Well, now certain Christians, they don't keep Easter. They'll say, yeah, no, that's pagan. And they understand these things, all praises. But are y'all keeping Passover? What do y'all do? To the best of your ability. Now we understand, hey, guess what? Not all of it can go to Jerusalem, keep it, right? So we're keeping it to the best of our ability. But we're not going to keep Easter. That's one thing we're not going to do. Most High forbid. All right. Let's read this article I had pulled up. Pulled up this article. How the Easter bunny and the colorful eggs originated from ancient spring traditions. So the spring equinox, right? Let's look that up real quick. The spring equinox. So that says March 19th. So the spring equinox. This is what happens at the spring equinox. During the equinox, the earth axis and its orbit slug get lined up so that both hemispheres get an equal amount of sunlight. All right. Um, yeah, really kind of showing forth that spring is coming in, and certain ancient uh pagan holidays, I mean they would surround a holiday off of that, right? But it says Easter is a time when Christians celebrate the resurrection of Christ, but a few aspects of the holiday are linked to ancient traditions from religions outside of Christianity. When they say Christianity, they mean, right, the Bible, for example, right? But we know that the Christianity, they only take certain things from the Bible, not the totality of Scripture. Easter brings together an unlikely cater of traditions, uh, church bunnies, church bunnies and eggs. What may seem like an odd trio, however, is actually tied together by the universal themes of spring and life renewed. While Easter is a time when Christians celebrate the resurrection of Christ, a few aspects of the holiday were adopted from ancient pagan rituals that celebrated the annual resurrection of life during the spring. So again, why are we so when did the Most High first of all even say to celebrate the resurrection? Right? When did they say throw a party, celebrate the resurrection? See, a lot of times, um, you know, when you have individuals like Catholics, Christians, for example, um, they they really focus on things that is really man tradition, right? They put man tradition before the Most High's. So in terms of, Easter is not written for you to, it's a law to celebrate the resurrection of Hamashiach Yahusha. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to celebrate the resurrection of Yahusha, right? In fact, it says to celebrate the Passover, which is not during the time of his resurrection, right? Christ was crucified and killed on the day of the Passover, right? Within that same day, because that night they kept the Passover, and within that same day, right? That's when Christ essentially was crucified as a sense to say that, guess what? He is the lamb, right? To be slain before the Most High. He is that lamb. He is that unleavened bread that you have on the Passover, right? So it's not really necessarily about his resurrection, but more so his sacrifice that he made for us. That's why we take the Passover as a solemn thing, which it should be, right? Because this during the time in which Yahweh gave up his life for us, right? And even dating going before Yahweh or back before Yahweh was on the scene, Passover was about us being delivered out of Egypt. And we weren't really having, I mean, during that time, we had to get the hell out of Egypt. So we were focused more so on that, and so much that we didn't even have time to put leaven in the bread that we had, right? So we were in a rush, we were in a hurry. But it says, so they always put man tradition, I mean, before the Most High's. What do Yahweh Shah say about that? This is Mark 7, verse 5. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? So you have Yahweh Shah and the apostles, they're eating bread without washing their hands. And the Pharisees and the scribes was like, well, why you not, why are you guys not walking after the tradition of the elders? Why are you guys not listening to the tradition of the elders? Right? That's what they were asking him. Verse 6. He answered and said unto them, well have Isaiah, right? Which is Isaiah, prophesied to you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for the doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such things like ye do. Right? So it says, laying aside the commandment of the Most High, ye hold the tradition of men. So again, a man could say, yeah, we're going to be, uh, 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 you know, we're going to be uh celebrating. Yeah, this is for the celebration and resurrection of Christ. Yeah, okay, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that instead of Passover, right? Instead of let's say the new moon, or let's say instead of Pentecost, whatever the case may be, they're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving, right? They're going to be celebrating instead of a feast of um you have Salakia, feast of dedication. Instead of keeping the feast of dedication, they're going to keep Christmas, right? So they always put the tradition of men before the actual tradition of the Most High, what the Most High said, right? So I mean, and Yahweh Shah talked about that, and we have to be careful for that, right? We have to be careful about that. But it says traditions with Christian and pagan roots. For Christians, Easter has always been about celebrating the central miracle of Yahweh's death and resurrection, said Andrew Hahn, the head of the historians team at English Heritage. Hahn noted that while Easter has been an important date in the Christian calendar since the earliest days of Christianity, the origins of certain aspects of the holiday are quite complex. What we know, what we now know is that Easter has a lot of pagan origins, he said. So it comes from a lot of traditions that are much earlier than Christianity itself. So I mean, this information is so readily available to us, and yet you have, and of course, it puts a picture of our people, uh, namely, this looks like Judah, right? Southern Kingdom, keeping, Easter. You know what I'm saying? Our people, especially both kingdoms, Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom, go hard when it comes to the tradition of men, right? We, dress up for church, get your best suit on. The women, the only time they're wearing dresses, right? Going to church. Um, and they go hard, man. They go hard for this tradition of men, right? It says, what we know now is that Easter, oh, Salakia, I already read that, Salakia. So it says that these traditions are much earlier than Christianity itself. So if it comes from pagan origins, why are we still celebrating these things? Why are we still integrating ourselves with it? If I know something had a pagan origin that has nothing to do with Hamashiach Yahweh, so it's like, why am I doing that? Right? It says the through line among these traditions is resurrection. While Christianity focuses on the resurrection of Christ, believers of pagan religions focus on the natural world and celebrated it when it resurrected in the spring. Right? Let's see here. It says, for example, 2,000 years before Christ, the Sumerians in Mesopotamia had a tradition among, it's like around the goddess Inanna, who descended into the underworld during winter and was brought back to life once the winter had ended. Right? Yeah, so that's off, man. We don't believe that. Right? Do you worship this goddess? Right? For all you that celebrate Easter, do you believe in this goddess? Do you worship this goddess, the Queen of Heaven? Right, let's look at that up real quick as well. The Queen of Heaven. Right? Do you worship the Queen of Heaven? See that? And in the Bible, it talks about the Queen of Heaven. Right? The Bible talks about the Queen of Heaven as well. Let's get that. Jeremiah 44. because I believe that Inanna is also called the Queen of Heaven. That's why there's a picture here as well by Inanna, right? Let's see here. Yeah, so yeah, yeah, Ishtar and Inanna, if I'm saying that right, they're both the Queen of Heaven. They're both the same thing, basically. Um, it says Inanna, right, or Ishtar is the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of love, war, and fertility. She is also associated with beauty, sex, divine law, and political power. Originally worshipped in Sumer, she was known by the Akkadian uh, Empire, Babylonians, and Assyrians as Ishtar, and occasionally the Igogram, Slovakia. Her primary title was the Queen of Heaven. So she was called the Queen of Heaven right here. All right, Ishtar. So let's go back to that. Let's go to that precept. So the Queen of Heaven is mentioned in Jeremiah. It's Jeremiah 44. Hmm. Verse number 15, it says, Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt, and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of Yahweh, we would not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do whatsoever thing goeth forth out of our own mouth to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, and our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of victuals, and were well, and saw no evil. So meaning that people was like, well, man, when I was in the world, it was better, right? It was, man, when I was, hey, because these thoughts may come to us, man. Yeah, man, when I was in the world, hey, man, I could, you know what I'm saying, do what I wanted. I was making money. I was making 100K a year. I was making 200K a year. You know what I'm saying? I was living good. I had a big house. I had this and third. I had I had a Mercedes. I had a Benz. I had, not a Benz. I had a Beamer. You know what I'm saying? I had, all this other stuff. So, and then, when I came into the truth, I had lost that, right? So this is the same mindset, the same mentality with our people right here, saying that, look, well, ever since we stopped worshiping these other gods, it's like we stopped receiving certain benefits. Like we had, evil is upon us now. We not really living too good. We struggling out here, but back then we was worshiping these other gods. I mean, we was good. We had plenty of victuals. We weren't hungry. We weren't having to you know, look for food. We had a lot of food. So we know that Ecclesiastes talks about, um, do a sinner do evil 100 times, right? And his days be prolonged. Yet I know that it shall be well with him that fear God, right? Because in the end, we know that it's going to be well with those that fear the Most High. Point blank, period, right? Verse 18. But since we left off to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by the famine. And when we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes? Did we make her cakes to worship her and to pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? So yeah, so they were worshiping the Queen of Heaven, as it says right here, right? The Queen of Heaven, right? Let's look at it in a different translation there. See here. Yeah, see, it says the Queen of Heaven right here. So they were worshiping the Queen of Heaven in the Bible in Jeremiah. So I mean, it's the same thing with our people right now. They're worshiping the Queen of Heaven by celebrating Easter. So again, a lot of people know that this has pagan origins. I mean, if you just have 10 minutes, you can just look this up and then you would understand and see, okay, Easter, that's actually a pagan holiday. All it takes is just 10 minutes. Everybody has a phone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone. Everybody has relatively, relatively everybody has access to some type of internet, right? To understand these things, to see these things, right? It says rebirth is very central to the traditions going right back to the very early days of civilization. This story is going through all these different religions that have the idea of rebirth in the spring, and which is very, very closely linked to the Christian tradition. All right. So it talks about the goddess behind the name, right? Uh, it says the traditional Easter dish of hot cross buns, for example, may be linked to the goddess. So even the food, all right. While there may be a Christian association with the buns due to the cross symbolizing the crucifixion of Christ, Hahn noted that the buns are linked to the goddess Esther, who had bread marked with a cross to celebrate the four seasons. All right. So, a lot of people say, well, yeah, no, this is so they're trying to make something that has nothing to do with Christ to have something to do with Christ. That's what that's going in. That's what's happening. You're trying to make something that has nothing to do with Christ. You're trying to mix it together and trying to form it and make it seem like it has something to do with Hamashiach Yahweh when it really doesn't. You know, that's what's going on right now. That's what they're trying to do. All right. Let's go to Colossians 2 and 8. Colossians 2 and 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Hamashiach. So they're not doing it after Hamashiach, right? They're doing it after the rudiments of the world. It says, in fact, Easter falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon of the vernal equinox, or the first day of spring, because Easter is timed to the lunar calendar, which varies from year to year. The holiday does not fall on the same day every year. In addition to the goddess Esther, fertility and other elements of spring are often associated with two aspects of the Easter holiday: eggs and bunnies. So it says, why we hunt Easter eggs? Because you ever wonder to yourself, why do bunnies lay eggs? I mean, or Salaki, why do they depict bunnies laying eggs? I mean, rabbits, bunnies do not lay eggs. So why are they doing that? And their agenda is always to get the kids involved, right? You get the kids involved, it's like, okay, we're just doing it for the kids, right? So I mean, that's what and the Bible talks about our people uh in Isaiah chapter 3 that children rule over them, right? Children are their oppressors. All right, let's go to Isaiah 3. Let's go to Isaiah 3. It's Isaiah 3, verse number let's see here. 12. As for my people, children are their oppressors. So our people sometimes, when Esau, he tried to get the kids involved essentially with almost every pagan holiday. So from a young age, we're indoctrinated with Easter, right? With the bunnies and the rabbits and the laying of the eggs. And we just think that, as children, we just think that it's just, a fun day. Like, we just playing hide and seek with the eggs, you know, something to look forward to, right? It's a fun activity. And if we're not doing it and the other kids doing it, then guess what? The kids is going to whine to the father, whine to the mother. So, so essentially, if parents don't want to do it, they're compelled to do it by their children, right? And that's what Esau tries to do. He always tries to get the children involved to see how he can further the oppression of blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, and further them being in the sleep in a basically a sleepish mind state, right? And to continue them in their sin, right? To make sure that they continue in their sin. But it says, again, I'm gonna read that again, Isaiah 3 and verse 12, and we see also like we see that for every holiday, like Halloween especially. At first, it wasn't for the kids, but now they getting the kids involved, and now they're making not only money, but they're making Israel to continue in their sin because the parents will be like, "Well, Halloween is just for the kids, so I'm gonna get them the costume, right? $40 right there, $30 right there. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get them the candy, right? I'm gonna get them this and the third. I'm gonna get them the uh uh, uh you know the bucket to put the candy in, et cetera, right? So Esau, he's benefiting not only financially, but he's benefiting as well because he's making our people to stay in their sin, right? But it says Isaiah 3 and verse number 12, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee. So who's leading us right now? You got Creflo Dolly, you got TD Jakes, you got the celebrities of the world that our people look up to. You know what I'm saying? You have even certain Edomites, our people look up to certain Edomites. Joe Biden, right? You know, a oh Shalom, hey brother Darrell on the live, man. Shalom, man. Shalom, shalom, right? Yeah, you have a lot of people that our people look up to. Trump, you know what I'm saying? Joe Biden. So it says the people that lead us, right? It says, "O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy paths." So the reason, they're looking up, um, they're looking up to these people that lead them, and the reason why we're continuing this sin is because of them. We're looking up to these role models, but they're not really righteous role models, right? We have to look up to the righteous role models that we have. And the only way to do so is to look back at what's written. Romans chapter 15, verse 4. These are the righteous role models. All right. Not again Joe Biden, Donald Trump, or the celebrities of the world, Jay-Z, Diddy. Are we going to look at Diddy for a role model? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, come on, brother. Say he's going to catch us on the replay. Come on, all praises. You know what I'm saying? All praise to the Most High. Right? So, come on. But I'm gonna keep going on that real quick with spirit. So it says, so what's the thing with the eggs, right? It says eggs have played a starring role in Easter due to their ancient association with fertility and new life. So when did the Most High say to celebrate fertility, right? Yeah, celebrate fertility. Yeah, well, I mean, when did the Most High ever say that? And just new life, right? In fact, we don't even celebrate our birthdays, right? That's something that we don't do as Israelites, right? As to celebrate our birthdays, right? Shalakia, right? We don't even celebrate our birth. So how are we going to be celebrating fertility and new life, right? It says, according to Han, eggs have been associated with Easter from the very early days of Christianity. Christians in the Middle East would dye the shell items around the period of Easter and then give them as gifts, right? It says Christians in the Middle East would dye the hard shell items around the period of Easter and give them as gifts. So just men tradition, right? Not pulling any precept, right? In fact, I don't even think, well, I shouldn't say that, but there's no such thing as a painted egg in the Bible when you read that, right? They weren't painting eggs in the Bible, okay? So within the Western church, the practice of hunting for eggs came to be when the first known egg hunt was hosted centuries ago by Protestant reformer Martin Luther. So again, another pseudo theologist who said that Yahweh committed adultery 3 times. This man literally said Yahweh committed adultery 3 times. So why should we listen to him? That makes no sense at all, right? I don't even want to hear what he has to say because this man literally said, yeah, Yahweh committed adultery with the woman at the well, Mary Magdalene, and with the woman that committed adultery in John chapter 8. So he's a pseudo theologist, and people always extol him to the clouds. He's a founder of Protestantism and of almost all the sects of religious sects of, where I should say, branches of Christianity in America, because America is a heavily Protestant country, because you have Methodists, you have Pentecostal, you have evangelicals, you have all these branches of Christianity that stemmed from Protestantism, which Martin Luther is the father of, because he came with Lutheranism. He came with I know John Calvin was a contemporary of his time, if I'm not mistaken. So these are all essentially branched with Protestantism. All right. Protestantism meaning protesting what? The church, right? The church meaning the church of the Catholic Church, because they were going off as well. Okay. Um, and they turned it into a money gimmick, and he understood that. All right. So yeah, so it keeps going into that. All right, but you can read this for yourself. Right. I just want to read this part as well. It says, much like Easter eggs, the tradition of the Easter bunny is centuries old and one that is tied to rabbits and hares being ancient symbols of fertility. Hey, guess what? In the Bible, you can't even eat a rabbit. So why we so we bigging up an unclean food, basically. That's like saying, yeah, during the time of Passover, bring the pigs around, right? That's off. A rabbit is an unclean food. Yeah, it may seem innocent. It may seem, oh yeah, kind of want to keep it as a pet and touch it and you know. And guess what? A rabbit is literally unclean food. So even to associate it with the day of the Most High is like, come on now, right? Let's go to Leviticus to prove that. Let's go to Leviticus 5. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. Right? Brothers always go into the swine, which we should, but we also got to go into the coney, right? Verse 6, and the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean to you, unto you. So what's the coney? Let's look up the coney. Just an archaic way of saying a rabbit. So this little thing, right? This little thing as small as a rabbit, right? Maybe a symbol of like, okay, as they say, oh yeah, this is a cute thing right here. You know what I'm saying? People want to say, yeah, this is an adorable little thing right here, adorable little creature. Well, guess what? It's still unclean. It may not look as um, disgusting or hideous as a pig, but it's still unclean though, in the eyes of the Most High for us to eat it, because it doesn't part of the hoof. But yet, it is still a ruminating animal because he does chew the cud, and so the hair is the same thing, right? The hair is the same thing. Let's look that up, right? Rabbits and hares. It would essentially be the same thing, same family, right? Maybe he doesn't look as good as the rabbit. Yeah, so these are unclean animals, but they're going to go ahead and associate it with the Lord's Passover. Um, Rabbits and hares are associated with fertility, particularly in the spring, a time of year when life returns, a return to life that is then linked to the resurrection. So they just winging it, just winging. This is completely just winging it. So yeah, kind of mix this philosophy with this philosophy, and so y'all see the rabbit as a sign of resurrection or a sign of life. Yeah, so we're gonna mix that in with Christ, and because he was resurrected, and that's madness. You know what I'm saying? Literally madness. All right. So again, this is vain philosophy going after the traditions of men, which is nowhere in the Bible. Okay, nowhere in the Bible. So as we go entering into the Passover, and again, Easter is this Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Easter is literally this Sunday. They just had Good Friday. And they say, yeah, so Good Friday, from Good Friday all the way to Easter, um, they say Good Friday is when Christ was crucified. Right? Let's look that up. Good Friday. What is it? Right? So it says Good Friday is a Christian holy day observing the crucifixion of Jesus or Yahushua and his death at Calvary. So meaning this is when supposedly Yahushua was crucified, was killed. Thing is, Yahushua was dead for 3 days and 3 nights. Right? He was dead for 3 days and 3 nights. Let's get a precept on that. Let's see here. It's a precept at Salakia. This is Mark 9 and verse number 31. For he taught his disciples and said unto them, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him. And after that he is killed, he shall rise the third day. But they understood not that saying and were afraid to ask him. So it says, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him. And after he is killed, he shall rise again. He shall rise the third day. Meaning, after 3 days and 3 nights, he's going to rise again. So hold on now. If Christ was killed on Good Friday, and let's look up the calendar. So if he was, well, actually, hold on, Salaki. if he was killed upon the third day, so like if he was killed upon Good Friday, which today is Good Friday, right? So if we look at Friday, all right, one night, boom. So one day will be from March 29th to March 30th at sundown, right? So March 29th at sundown to March 30th at sundown, that's one day. So one, and then day two, which is, I don't have it pulled up, but let's look at April now, right? Actually, let's look at March, April calendar. See if we can have both through the spirit. This is 2023. All right, because I got a lot of stuff on my calendar through the spirit. So it says, see, why is this thing not even over? All right, there we go. So it's they say on Passover is supposed to be, or Shalaki, they say Easter is supposed to be when he arose again, but it's supposed to be 3 days and 3 nights. So if it's 3 days and 3 nights, this is night one, night two, night three. But this is when he's supposed to rise, though. So that don't make any sense. Because if he was killed right here on Good Friday, so boom, 1, night 2, boom, night 3. So that doesn't make any sense. That's not even 3 days and 3 nights. All right. It's not even 3 days and 3 nights. All right. More so like 2. Because y'all keep Easter. You don't keep it, you know, no. I know a lot of people don't keep Easter in the night. They keep it in the morning. Right. Morning time to the afternoon. That's why a lot of people keep Easter anyway. Right. So it's not even 3 days and 3 nights to the spirit. All right, through the spirit. So yeah, kind. But as we lead up to Easter, right? As we lead up to Easter, or as we lead up to the real Easter, which will be going into the Passover, right? As we lead up to Passover, I know brother's been talking about it a lot, trying to get our spirits ready for it. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get our spirits right, trying to get our mind right, and put away certain sins that we've been dealing with through the spirit, right? I'm gonna get this precept, uh, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. I'm gonna close out soon as well. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse number 7. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even Hamashiach our Passover sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. You see that? So we want to keep the feast. And why is Paul saying, let us therefore keep this feast if the law is done away with? See, we're always going to bring that up, man. If the law is done away with, why is he saying in 1 Corinthians, yeah, let us keep this feast? Is this spiritual? Is he saying like, okay, spiritually keep the feast, but don't actually keep the feast? Because you'll be going off if you actually try to keep it. No, he said, let us keep the feast on a physical level. Right? Which feast is this? It's going into Passover. Right? It says, not with old leaven, not with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So we're going to try to serve the Most High to the best of our ability in sincerity and in truth, man, through the Spirit. So with that, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Mashiach Yahushua. I'm going to close out with this, right? Close out with this. See here, all right? Sirach chapter 51. Sirach 51 and verse number 12. For thou savest me from destruction and deliverest me from the evil time. Therefore will I give thanks and praise thee and bless thy name, O Lord. When I was yet young, wherever I went abroad, I desired wisdom openly in my prayer. I prayed for her before the temple and would seek her out even to the end. See that? So that's what we're doing out here. We're trying to seek wisdom and understanding from the Most High. So with that, all praise to the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Hamashiach Yahweh Shah. Lord willing, this video was edifying unto you through the Spirit. Kwame Yasha Allah, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom.